Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Adjectiveless X-Men, that's X-Men Volume 2, number 26, cover dated November 1993. So this is part of a crossover celebrating the 30th anniversary of both the Avengers and X-Men, both titles first published in 1963. So the two titles cross over. Bob Harras was the writer of Avengers at the time, and of course the editor of the X titles. So the title of the crossover was Bloodties. This is part 2 of 5. Part 1 was Avengers number 368. And in teeny tiny writing here it says the second chapter of the X-Men Avengers crossover. So a striking cover by Andy Kubert, inked by Matthew Ryan. Captain America always looking good on a cover. I like the use of geotone here on his shield, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out the anatomically impossible pose here, and that looks very much like he has a broken back. So I don't know what more to say about it. It might have been something that Kubert could have taken back to the drawing board and revised the pose there. But otherwise, a nicely composed and visually striking cover. So let's open this one up to the splash page. Well, we've got an establishing shot of the Blackbird winging its way to Genosha. And here in this anchor image, we have Quicksilver, who is both Magneto's son and also the father of Luna, who was kidnapped by Fabian Cortez in Avengers 368 and brought to Genosha. And in the opening 4 or 5 pages of X-Men 26, the narrative captions and the dialogue between the characters catches you up on what's been going on. Otherwise, you're in the middle of things. As I was originally when I picked this issue off the stands, I didn't pick up Avengers 368, so I relied on the narrative captions and the dialogue to catch me up on what was going on story-wise. So here we see Quicksilver absolutely apoplectic that Cortez has his daughter, and Rogue tells him to calm down. And then we should move on to the double page half spread here of Cortez. He's on broadcast television and he is haranguing a crowd of mutates in Genosha. Here's Luna, who is Magneto's granddaughter, and he says to them the likes of, "Hear the clarion call to battle, mutates and fellow mutants, celebrate the opportunity you now have for freedom." He says, "Humanity will not give us what we deserve, what we were entitled to. They fear us, they fear our powers, seeking to keep us down through enslavement. The only way left us then is to take what is ours. Let the battle begin, and we shall show the human overlords why our race has been called Homo Superior." And then we get Trish Tilby reporting from Genosha, just as she did at the trial of the X-Men and X-Factor back in Extinction Agenda. So here she is again. Talking about the man known as Cortez has made a public call for violence, has used the Master of Magnetism himself as a rallying point. Questions which have lingered here for days remain unanswered, presumably. How soon before widespread civil war scars this already ravaged land? So the title of this story is Civil Disobedience, a tale of coming together and coming undone by Fabian Nicieza, Andy Kubert and Matt Ryan on inks, Bill Oakley letterer, and Joe Rosas colorist. So here we've got the X-Men, a mixture of the blue and gold teams with Quicksilver aboard the Blackbird winging its way to Genosha. Revanche is there as well, note. And a little bit of a debate about what happened to Magneto, the fact that he was mind wiped in the previous issue of X-Men, the morality of that. Quicksilver is adamant, however, my father deserved his fate. He may no longer be a player in this new game, but those are his words Cortez is using. What we see in Genosha is my father's dream made flesh with all its bloody consequences, and Cortez is using my child as a symbol to inflame more bloodletting, more death, and there is nothing I can do. So, and by the way, I should comment on, this is a really nice image here of Fabian Cortez This kind of top-down, three-quarter profile angle, reminiscent of a drawing of Jim Lee's of Magneto in Uncanny X-Men 275. Actually, is it 275 or 274? One or the other, in the Savage Land with Rogue and Kazar. So, here we see Quicksilver deflated in despair about what to do in relation to rescuing his daughter Luna. And Gambit makes a point here. Cortez has no idea Big Daddy Mags is sitting up in space with a mind as empty as the air, no? Long as he running scared, we can make him think maybe he need us to protect him too, which is just what I like to see for a change. The X-Men going into a fight with an ace up our sleeves as he pulls out, of course, the ace of spades, always the ace of spades with Gambit. And then we switch to somewhere else, Avalon. And who else is watching the broadcast news except for Colossus, who is still with Magneto. He made that choice at the end of X-Men 25. Magneto has had his mind wiped, but he's still watching TV. And Colossus is interrupted in his musings by Exodus, who is this strange acolyte of Magneto's, kind of his chief acolyte, and who made his first appearance in X Factor 92. And he says, "You were thinking, Peter, that there might be something we could do to stop the insanity below us. Perhaps there is, but would Magneto wish it so?" And Colossus says, "I'm afraid, Exodus, by the tone of your voice, that your solutions and mine are not at all similar." So they have a philosophical debate about why Colossus is still on board Avalon, why he is taking care of Magneto. And he says here to Exodus, "I chose to stay because I'm tired of fighting for the dreams of others. I'm tired of using my mutant powers as a weapon. And I had foolishly hoped that here in space among my own kind, I could use my skills as a soldier, a farmer, and a painter, abilities learned as both a man and a mutant, to help create something, to help make something good flower, rather than be party to more destruction." But Exodus isn't having it, and he asks Colossus to leave because he wants to have counsel with Magneto. And how he can have counsel with Magneto, who is in effect in a vegetative state, is a question that I don't know the answer to. So Colossus walks away, and not for the first time wonders into what madness has he stumbled. Again, nicely drawn pages here by Andy Kubert, and as ever, excellent, bright colouring by Joe Rosas. That's a nice pose on Colossus. Kubert does a very good Colossus, in my opinion. So let's continue. We switch scenes to Manhattan, and I like the way we kind of look down on the island of Manhattan, zoom in. Then this is actually the SHIELD helicarrier, as it turns out, and we've got the Avengers of this era, 1993. So this is some of their roster here: the Vision, War Machine, Circe, Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, and Crystal of the Inhumans, but acting as an Avenger. And nice anchor image here as they battle and fight off, trying not to kill them, of course, SHIELD agents. So in effect, Nick Fury is trying to prevent the Avengers from boarding a Quinjet and going to Genosha to rescue Luna. And I like this bit here with Hercules, who was on the team at the time, and he rips up this piece of machinery building and flings it at the SHIELD helicarrier here. So Dum Dum Dugan gives the order to pull back over the sea. And then we get this great anchor image here of Nick Fury coming up behind Captain America, and then they have a debate about keeping the Quinjet grounded. And Captain America says here, what do what you have to do, Nicholas, and the Avengers will do the same. Whoever said that at one point or another, those positions wouldn't lead to a confrontation. So confrontation between government, state, and the Avengers team. And that would become a storyline more or less in the Civil War era, written by Mark Millar. And Fury's response to Captain America is, We only sicked S.H.I.E.L.D. on you yahoos cause the United Nations don't want you meddling in the Genoshan civil war. So, you know, bringing in kind of political, real world type political considerations here. But Nick Fury taken from behind by the Black Knight. Captain America worried that he killed him. Kill him, Cap, says Black Knight. Of course not. Have some faith. My Neuroblade just knocked him out. He'll be up and around in a few minutes. So then they board the Quinjet. Dane, Black Knight, is going to pilot it. I like this shot of Captain America, his shield slung over his back, and the duo shade there as well. Or sorry, the screen tone there. And then they're getting ready to take off. But the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are still trying to keep them on the ground. So Cap contacts Black Widow. She's got a very, very dark screen tone there. It is not all black. There's a screen tone. You can just about maybe make it out here in this panel. And he wants her to run interference while they take off War Machine 2. Nice anchor image of War Machine there. And so they create the interference necessary for the Quinjet to take off and make its way to Genosha, and Cersei tags along because at this time period she was involved in a kind of little love affair or with Black Knight, who there's kind of a love triangle between Black Knight, Crystal and Cersei. So then we're left with Vision, Hercules and Hawkeye back in Manhattan, and they're going to they're preparing for the fight of their lives. Hawkeye clarifies what that is. We're about to storm the United Nations and duke it out with the politicians. So to explain themselves and why they feel the Avengers need to go to Genosha. And then we pick up with Professor X, who is in Genosha too. And in this Jeep we have Philip Moreau. Last seen in an X book around issue 264, when he and Jenny Ransom, who's driving here, elected to go back to Genosha and represent the cause of mutates and mutants on the island. And I can't just recall it as I talk here now whether they also featured even tangentially in Extinction Agenda. If they did, they didn't have any kind of major role in it. And we've got USA agent here, who is a UN deployed bodyguard for the team. Henry Peter Gyrick, National Security Advisor. Professor X, Beast. And there you go. So the Jeep and Travelcade is ambushed. It's a gas attack, but Professor X is ready for it. He tells Hank telepathically to be prepared. So here the gas canisters going down. And Beast gets Professor X and himself respirators. So then Professor X tells him to climb over the rise. And who is there waiting for them? Except for a bipartisan group of humans and mutants. And they seem to be, one of them, it's her first appearance here. Renee Majcom is their leader. And she is one of the finest biogeneticists, as Professor X says, in the field today, and the leader of the bipartisan rebel battalion operating out of the Prenova province. The BRP is made up of Genoshan humans and mutates who have banded together to stop the atrocities being committed by both sides in this war. So, Beast here, acting the gentleman, kissing Renee's hand and praising her papers. She has read his biogenetic papers too, but there's no time for pleasantries. So they got to get on the road, and they hop aboard this truck. And who has been tailing them except for USA agent? And he climbs underneath the truck, and he is going along with them as they travel to Hammer Bay and the Genoshan capital in order to find a way to bring this madness to an end, as Professor X says. Nice art on these pages as well. And then finally, It is the X-Men comic, and so here they appear. Nice anchor image here of them arriving north of Hammer Bay. And we've got Rogue remembering the place. She's been there before in that first Genoshan storyline by Chris Claremont, going all the way back to Uncanny X-Men 235 to 238, videos of which you will find on the channel. And Gambit asks her, "You tense, girl?" And she says, "First time I was here, I was with Wolvie. I was just wondering how he's doing. It's been over a week since he left." So, of course, in the previous issue of X-Men, Wolverine had his adamantium pulled from his body by Magneto before Professor X mind wiped Magneto. And then we saw the aftermath of that in Wolverine 75, a video of which is on the channel. And then Wolverine at the end of that issue left the X-Men. So he's no longer part of the Blue Team, and he won't be for years to come. So Storm here says, "We must respect the decision Wolverine made." But she says, well, Gambit says that we all miss him. And she asks, "Well, even you?" "Like having jambalaya without the spice, girl," he says. Always got to be reminded he's Cajun, yes. And then the team start to develop a strategy, Storm and Cyclops together. Storm suggesting they use Wolverine's subtle and sneaky approach. And Cyclops agrees. So he determines that they split up into 3 units. We don't know what those are just yet because they are interrupted by the arrival of this trio known as the Unforgiven. That's what they declare themselves to be. And they're operatives of Fabian Cortez. So Quicksilver, in a rage, pummels one of them. And he says, "Do you know where my father's road will lead you, fool? To the same place it led him, left alone, empty, consumed by his own angers and hatred, until he burned himself out and was left a vegetative shell of a man. Is that the way you wish for this country?" And then who's there listening to all of this except for Fabian Cortez? Nice anchor image of him here, striking a Magneto-like pose. And he says to Pietro, "Thank you for nonetheless confirming my suspicions. If Magneto has truly been removed from the playing board, then nothing can stop me from seeing this country and everyone in it awash in a raging river of bloodshed." Okay, so that's a bit of a cliffhanger until the next part of the crossover. And then, Fabian Cortez kind of imitating Claremont with a lot of narrative captions. But this is a particularly good one, so I'm going to read it out. A week ago, this section of Hammer Bay was called Havershaw Heights, the most exclusive section of the city where the elite of the ruling class cracked open lobster and sipped champagne. Now the caviar class has joined the sewer scrapers in the streets, face to face, hand to hand, bound together by an unholy matrimony of genetic diversity, till death do them part. I like that. That's pretty well put together by Nicieza. And then it's interrupted by Captain America, his shield knocking some sense into the combatants. Nice anchor image here of the Avengers. Captain America says, "We didn't come halfway across the world just to see people kill each other in the name of blind, unthinking hatred. Avengers, let's put an end to this now." So here we go. We have the Avengers going into battle and pacifying the two groups. And then Crystal gestures with her power, "If all of you will allow me, a hurricane gale force wind should," and then something goes really badly wrong. The human contingent in the battle are completely destroyed, and Crystal is shocked. She had nothing to do with it. There was a fluctuation in the electromagnetic field far greater than any that she could create, she says. And who does it turn out to be responsible for this? It's Exodus. And so he says to Scarlet Witch, "In truth, your father's greatest disciple," he means himself, "must follow in his stead. This country's mutate population must be saved, even especially if it means the deaths of every breathing human being left in Genosha. the time for Exodus has arrived. So there you go. We don't quite have what the cover promised us, which is a crossover of the X-Men and Avengers, not just yet, but they're both contingents, Avengers and X-Men, are on the island, and we can expect them to meet up and team up shortly. So the next part of the crossover is Avengers West Coast 101. And the next X-Men comic part of the crossover will be Uncanny X-Men 307. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men 26. If you did like the video, please do so. Please like it in YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.